Are tuned to Kennett, Zenith Cablevision. Thank you for watching. It's time for talk. Each evening at this time, Monday through Friday, Rosemary interviews local personalities and others who bring items of interest to this community. Time for Talk is a community betterment service. Tonight, Rosemary takes us by means of portable camera out of our studios and maybe into your neighborhood. And now, it's time for Talk.
The boardroom of the Kennett Chamber of Commerce. That's where you find our cameras tonight. You are looking at a wall of pictures of men who have dedicated a lot of time and energy. Specifically, the one you're looking at right now is Larry Jones. 18 years ago, he was president of this Chamber of Commerce, and he's sitting right here with us today. Larry, a lot of water's gone under the bridge since you were president of the Chamber of Commerce. And locally, your job is?
I'm the superintendent of City Light, Gas, and Water. It was City Light and Water at the time.
Did you hear him say light, gas, and water? All right, and thereby hangs a tale. First, before we start to dig into that, tell me where you came from to Kennett.
Well, prior to working for Kennett, I worked for the city of Piggott. They had a municipal electric system and water system, and then in 1974, I came to work for City Light and Water.
Okay, now did I understand you to say at some point that you didn't really think about changing jobs and coming over?
Well, I had found out working for the previous utility, municipal-owned utility, that politics play a big part sometimes in the operation of utilities that are owned by the cities, and I really didn't want to get back into that. But when T-Bone Hall first talked to me about working for City Light and Water, he assured me that Kennett had always been operated as a business and that they had a board of public works, and he encouraged me to consider the job here.
Now, when you say politics, what do you mean? What does this do to a utility? Elaborate.
Well, typically, a utility system has a source of revenue that sometimes the mayors and the council gets involved in, and it puts everybody on a roller coaster ride because they sometimes use monies for projects, and the rates are on a roller coaster ride too, but they usually are going up instead of down. Each increase means a higher hill to overcome.
Okay, before we go off the air, I want to ask you something about Memphis and something I have seen on the TV just this past week. But I want to get into this story about Kennett and the purchase of this gas system. Tell me how this came. Give me some background.
Okay, that was probably the biggest thing going during the time that I was on the chamber board back in 1980. And when I went to work for City Light and Water, it was already in process. Associated Natural Gas was part of Ardmore Power, and they were getting ready to merge with AP&L, and they were ordered to divest of the gas properties because they were operating dual monopolies within the same community.
But don't I remember there was a terrible time in the city being able to purchase it?
Well, Associated didn't want to sell. They did not want to give it up.
Well, I thought you said they were required by law to do this.
But if you don't have a buyer, then you don't have to sell, and so they're...
Okay, but didn't the city make it known? Why did the city want this?
Well, we wanted it, we've got the big power plant, and it could burn natural gas, so we wanted a source of fuel at wholesale prices for that power plant. That was one of the major reasons. Another reason is that one of the reason our rates are low in Kennett is because when you operate all the utilities together, the meter reader reads all the meters at someone's home in a matter of seconds. So the efficiencies are there when you have everything in one basket. So we could see that we would have, if we had the gas operation, it would be nonprofit, it would be local controlled, and we would be able to do it without much additional cost. So that's one of the reasons that we wanted the gas system, was the efficiencies involved.
Okay, so logically anybody could see that it would be better. Now, what did you mean when you said? I remember it took a long time. How long did this purchase thing drag on?
Well, it started in the mid-'70s, and it actually did not come before the people to vote on it until August of 1980.
And you said they didn't have a buyer, and yet don't I remember the city declared its intentions and wanted to all this time? Tell me how that happened.
Well, of course, there was opposition from the company that had it. They didn't want to sell, so one of the first things that we had to do to be able to buy it was pass a bond issue, because it was $2 million.
Oh.
And, so if the bond issue failed, which it did in Malden's situation, failed twice, so it was put before the people in August 5th of 1980, and it did pass almost 2-1.
Now, tell me why it failed in Malden and why it passed in Kennett.
Well, I think that Kennett has a reputation of a strong utility board, operating it very efficiently, not just when I was here, but even in the past, and that maybe Malden failed to have that kind of reputation.
Okay, now,
It took a lot of hard work by a lot of people to get it passed too here.
Well, I remember reading the pros and the cons in the paper.
Mm-hmm.
And did I see that you had some of the clippings from
Right.
that time that are a matter of record in the newspaper of,
Mm-hmm.
of the problems that came in? I remember one of the big things was that everybody that was associated with it would be out of work. Did that happen?
Well, no, it didn't happen. None of them went to work for us, even though we encouraged that possibility, but we didn't have a single person to apply for a job here. We had to get professional people from outside of the Kennett area, and it's worked quite well. They used a lot of scare tactics that, it was a dangerous commodity, which it is, and that we might blow up the whole town. But
Was this said, you think?
yes.
Yes, it was?
Yes, it was.
Okay. But they used all these tactics. They delayed it, how long did you say?
Well, it took a little over 4 years before we actually got possession. We took over December the 1st of 1984, a little over 4 years after the bond issue passed. We had to go to the state for approval. We had to go to the federal government for approval, and there was a lot of foot dragging in the process.
Is there a lot of red tape involved when there's a transfer like this of a utility?
Yes, there is, because we had to deal with the Public Service Commission, and we had to get the allocation of gas transferred. Back at that time, natural gas was, we were running out back in the 70s. There's going to be a shortage of natural gas. Of course, it hadn't turned out that way, but that's what they were saying then. So getting the gas supply was real crucial to our being able to operate it, because without that, we didn't have anything.
Now, do I not recall that when rates are published, that Kennett we have some incredible rates that we pay for utilities?
We have the lowest electric rates in the state, and we've maintained that for years. Our rates are about half of what the private power companies charge in the state of Missouri.
I remember when we were outside the city limits, and we wanted in the city limits. It meant extra taxes, but it was nothing like what we would save in utilities by being in the city. This is still true.
It's still true today. And of course, we're facing deregulation that's coming up. You probably have heard a little bit about.
Okay, now tell me what this means. What does this mean?
Well, it means that electricity will be like a commodity that you can buy maybe from someone else, such as you can buy phone service from more than one long-distance phone service from more than one company. And that's what the government is pushing us into. And I say pushing us, I'm not really in favor of it, because Missouri happens to be in a location where rates are lower than most places in the United States. And I think it's going to have the effect of leveling rates nationwide, which is not going to really help us. It'll help people in the West and the Northeast.
Now, about this Memphis thing, explain this to me. What's going on there?
Well, there's a effort by the mayor to get the city out of debt to sell the Memphis Light Gas and Water.
Okay. Memphis is in the same shape we are. They own the utility. The city owns the utility.
And they have very low rates in all categories.
And the mayor wants to sell that to private.
He's looking into the possibility of selling the system so that he can have the cash now to pay off the debt and do a lot of improvements to Memphis.
Now, what do you think about this?
Well, I think it's a short-sighted venture, because his theory is that everyone who buys the system will have to offer competitive rates, which will still be low. But when you think about it, everyone who buys the system is going to have to pay off that debt. And then the ratepayers are going to be the ones who pay that debt. And then they're going to make a profit on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
instead of the city making any profit that's to be there, it's going to go into private hands.
right. So it's a short-term gain for the city. And
Okay, now, you came to work here in Kennett in when, 74?
January of 1974, and became superintendent in January of 1976.
Okay, well, now that's fast rise. Talk to me about some of the changes that you have seen go on here.
Well, you know, back in 1941, when it all got started with the help of Doc Riggs and
that was a tremendous story.
Yes, it is.
The fight he had to get the city light and water.
yes, y'all got him on tape explaining that, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting. But anyway, back in those days, you pretty well did what you wanted to. You generated power and you sold it, and but today, everything we do is pretty much got the government involved some way. There's an awful lot of government reporting, even though we are owned by the people of Kennett. We're not a private power company for profit, but we still have to report to the government an awful lot on just about everything we do.
Okay, but it enabled us to have the best rates, the rates we talked about that are so good.
The Board of Public Works is set up by a state statute, which their number one priority is to operate the utility system in the best interest of the people of Kennett. And they have done that. And so we have been able to build a system that has got the lowest rates, not only in Missouri. I really can't find any city surrounding us that has rates as low as we do.
Are other cities in Missouri working on this same sort of thing? Would they like to buy the utilities? Are they having what success?
I get calls quite frequently from a city that's unhappy with their electric rates, and they see what we have the lowest rate. And yes, they would like to do that, but it is so difficult today to start out from scratch.
Why?
Well, you got to go into competition like we did back in the 40s. So we had competition with, and some people think competition is good, and I can see that. But when it comes to a power system with power lines running down both sides of the street, trying to crisscross the street in every direction, it really is not very efficient. And that's the problem with having dual systems in a community. And up until a few years ago, it's now Union Electric has bought AP&L, was Artmo, and before AP&L.
So we had two systems.
Yep.
You could choose which one to hook up to within the city limits.
But we beat them out simply because of rates.
Mm-hmm.
Rates and service. I mean, our servicemen are right here in town.
Are you still active in the chamber?
Well, I served on the board the past 3 years. I've had my turn to be president. I don't plan to do that anymore. But yes, we're still very much involved in trying to acquire an industry or get an industry to locate in Kennett. So we're often computing electric rates and water and sewer rates and gas rates to attract industry to Kennett.
And it's one of the most attractive things we have here in Kennett.
Yes, it is.
It's our utility rates. You've been talking with Larry Jones, who was president of this Chamber of Commerce in 1982. That's 18 years ago. We have a picture of Larry, I think, is in this paper. We'll show you. As he said, hair down over his ears at that point, but that was the style. Thank you, Larry, for coming out.
Thank you.
You have been watching Time for Talk.